Last week, the Los Angeles Dodgers reminded every fan of Major League Baseball that there is a huge money problem. Signing Kyle Tucker to a 4-year, $240 million contract just might be the last straw that leads to the dreaded salary cap.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, the show where we talk nothing but the Diamondbacks every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your lifelong D-backs fan and overly obsessed host, Daynen Biggs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to get right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season, postseason long. Today, we are talking about the Dodgers' newest addition to their lineup and what that is now looking like. We're also going to be talking about why money is so important to these Major League Baseball teams. And finally, we're going to be talking about if a salary cap is coming and if it is, in fact, the right thing to do. The disparity between MLB teams has never been worse. The Dodgers have the highest paid player in all of baseball history, and they just signed the second highest paid player in baseball history. Talk about buying the championship. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks are only able to acquire somebody like Nolan Arenado because the Cardinals are covering 70% of his payroll. But if we're being honest, this may not even be the Dodgers' fault. It was the Diamondbacks' fault. In 2023, Arizona swept LA in the playoffs in humiliating fashion, which has led the Dodgers to sign over $2 billion worth of players since. And now we may be looking at a shortened or missing 2027 season, all because of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Shohei Ohtani was the first one that they signed after this terrible loss to the Diamondbacks that the entire world saw. And they signed him to a 10-year, $700 million deal. So he's getting paid about $70 million a year, though he is actually not getting paid $70 million a year. That is what he is worth. He is getting paid like $1 or $2 million a year. I can't remember the exact number, but he's getting paid next to nothing compared to what he's owed because his payments are being deferred, which is something that many teams use. The Diamondbacks used it to great effect in the early 2000s when they were first getting started, though that had many consequences that followed. But he has an average annual value of $70 million. They also signed Yoshinobu Yamamoto to a 12-year, $325 million contract. They signed Teoscar Hernandez to a 1-year, $23.5 million contract, and then later a 3-year, $66 million contract. They signed Tyler Glasnow to a 5-year, $136.5 million contract. They then signed Blake Snell to a 5-year, $182 million contract. Edwin Diaz to a 3-year, $69 million contract. And most recently, Kyle Tucker to a 4-year, $240 million contract. That's not all of them. That's just the major ones that I wanted to bring up, that I felt were worthy of bringing up. And that means that they now have, on just a yearly basis, this is the average annual value of just a handful of players. They have Ohtani for $70 million a year. They have Kyle Tucker for $60 million. They have Snell for $36 million. Mookie Betts. I wrote that down wrong in my Mookie Betts for $30 million a year. Glasnow for $27 million, Yamamoto for $27 million, Freeman for $27 million, Diaz for $23 million, Teoscar Hernandez for $22 million, and Tanner Scott for $18 million. That's their top 10 highest paid players or highest valued players that they have going into the 2026 season. That means that they have 9 players that are making over or are worth more than $20 million a year. Just for reference, the D-backs have 3. They have Corbin Burns for 32. They have Eduardo Rodriguez for 20. And now they have Merrill Kelly for 20. So they have 9 players. Diamondbacks have 3 players. The top 10 players for the Dodgers are worth $340 million a year. That is more than every other team's entire payroll, except for the Mets, who are making $346 million a year. Sorry, not making, they're paying $346 million a year. So just 10 players for the Dodgers are making more money than every other, except for one, 28 entire payrolls. And another just reference, the Diamondbacks, the top 10 Diamondbacks are making a combined $153 million. Now, granted, I'll give you this for anybody who's like, well, hold on, you're nitpicking here, you're avoiding some stuff. Granted, the top 10 players, that's the majority of the payroll, right? I mean, yeah, that makes sense. The Diamondbacks, $153 million a year. Their payroll was at 200 or so last year. So that's pretty close. The Dodgers, though, I mean, 540. I mean, I think it was 540. I guess with the payroll tax, it was about 540, though I estimated that to be closer to the 600 or even higher once you include the signing bonuses and everything like that. But nonetheless, but still, I think if that 340 is the majority, I think it is, but it's only just because the Dodgers are still paying a lot of money for all of these other teams, or all these other players rather. And this is alarming because this is giving a lot of momentum to the movement of we need a salary cap. Oh, fans are calling, oh, we need a salary cap. Owners are saying we need a salary cap. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of MLB, is saying we need a salary cap. Everybody's saying that, and every time the Dodgers sign somebody, it's like, oh, okay, there we go. The Dodgers are already, I think they're within 10 or $20 million of where they were last year. And there's still so much more for them that they can do. There's still so many players that they're looking to sign that that I think they're going to break last year's record easily. And their payroll tax is going to be far and away greater than it was last year. And the thing is they don't even care. They're like, sure, whatever, we'll pay the money. Money is not the problem for the Dodgers. It isn't. It's not an object for them because the Dodgers are in a market and a place as a team, as a business, where the more money they put into the team, the more they get out of it, which that is how business works. The more you risk, the more you get out of it. The thing about the Dodgers is it's not much of a risk because they make so much on a yearly basis that if they do blow $60 million a year, if Kyle Tucker breaks both of his femur bones, which I'm not hoping that happens to him, but if he loses his legs in a train accident tomorrow, the Dodgers are going to be fine. That's not going to end their season. That's not going to end their budget, you know? So, but if that same thing happened to any other team, they would be in a really, really, really bad place. So, where in the heck does all this money come from? Surely the owners of these teams have more than enough to make the difference, right? But if we want to get to the bottom of the problem and how to fix it, we're going to need to learn a little bit more about the business of baseball. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Each game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll get a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. And we're back, and I wanted to say thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Here's a hot take that you're not going to get anywhere else. Money is kind of important, especially when it comes to assembling your Major League Baseball team. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, oh, well, the reason the Diamondbacks aren't making the playoffs is because the cheap owner refuses to spend money on them. Or, well, why can't we just sign all of the big players? Baseball teams are rich, just pay them. Well, the Dodgers the Dodgers do, so why can't they? Well, here's a little reality check. The team can only spend as much money as they make, and teams do not earn money equally. The Dodgers make a lot more money than the Diamondbacks do. The Yankees earn a lot more money than the Marlins do. A smart owner and a smart president of those teams can be smart with their money and find ways to make a little more of it. But In-N-Out is not going to make more money than McDonald's anytime soon. That's the kind of disparity that we're looking at here. Baseball teams make money from a handful of different sources, but let's go ahead and look at just a few that I think are going to be relevant for this discussion. First of all, the media rights, broadcasting rights, things like that. There is the national media rights, which I believe the MLB makes about $3 billion a year. It's almost $3 billion a year that MLB brings in every year from national broadcast rights. That is split up 30 ways. So each team makes about $10 million from that a year. It's not like a ton. When you're looking at that pays for half of Merrill Kelly's contract. So national media rights, not so much. But then there's the local media rights. Now, these are where teams really get rich. Teams like the Yankees, the Dodgers, or the Cubs, they own parts of their regional sports networks. They have decided, you know what? We don't want to just sell our media rights to some network and they'll pay us every year. We actually want a piece of that pie. So they go and they actually buy ownership of the network that is broadcasting. Like the Yankees have the Yes Network, for example. They have ownership of the Yes Network. So when the Yes Network makes money, the Yankees directly make money as well. But we're looking at teams that make the most from local media rights with broadcasting rights. The Dodgers are unsurprisingly on top. They're number one, making, remember, national media rights, they make about 10 million. Local, regional media rights, they make $334 million a year. The Yankees are second, a far second, at $217 million a year. And then I was a little surprised to see this. The Angels are third at $172 million a year. Then the Cubs at 132, and then the Mets at 128. So that's the top five. Dodgers making far and away the most out of any of these teams. And here's why. Because in 2013, the Dodgers signed a 25-year, $6.35 billion deal. Now, in 2013, that was peak TV time. Like, advertisers were paying tons of money to get their ads and their businesses and their brands out on television. Nowadays, it's the internet, it's social media, that's all I can think of. It'll be the brain chips that we get implanted here pretty soon, the TV is just something of the past. It's still there and it's still important and it still makes money, but that was when it hit its peak and the Dodgers cashed in at just the right time. So nobody's ever going to pay that much again. But the Dodgers got in at just the right time. They're making some serious money because of that. And they will until that contract is over in the 2030s, 2038, looks like. So that's business. That's good business right there. They did a very good job with that. And if you look, that is when the Dodgers really started to pick up. It was right after that because the Dodgers were like, oh, snap, we are making a lot of money every single year. Let's put it into our team. Let's put it into the payroll. Let's make sure that we're competing every single year. And they're not making nearly as much, but the Angels are a good example of a team that is also making a good amount of money off of this in this revenue or in this revenue option, but haven't been able to do that. And that's partially, they have Mike Trout, but they also have Anthony Rendon, a handful of other players that just didn't work out. Not that Trout didn't work out, but you know what I mean. And so they didn't play their cards quite as right. And so they have the money, but not really much to show for it. So I do want to say the reason the Dodgers have as much money as they do is because of good business. That's just the way it is. But let's go ahead and compare that as well to the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks, we don't know exactly how much they're making a year, but of the previous deal, which ended in 2023, it was from 2015, I want to say, to 2023, they were making $75 million a year because of Fox Sports Arizona, which was later turned into Bally Sports. But when Bally Sports went bankrupt, the MLB took over the remainder of the 2023 season and guaranteed 80% of the income that the Diamondbacks and the other teams, the Diamondbacks are one of 8, I believe, teams that were in this deal. They promised them 80% of that revenue. So the Diamondbacks ended up making about $61 million on that. So, and then from there, it was just directly with MLB. We don't know exactly how much they made, but it was comparable. And for the next 3 years, ESPN is going to own the national and in-market rights to the Diamondbacks games, as well as those other teams. But the money amount is not known. I imagine it's probably fairly similar as well. So $75 million versus $334 million. One of these teams is obviously going to have a lot more money to play with than the other. That's just the facts. That's just how it is. There is a little bit, and here's another interesting wrinkle. There is a small amount of, I'm not sure what it is, but there's an amount of the local TV revenue that is shared amongst all 30 teams. So the Dodgers, with this $8.35 billion deal, it does benefit all the other teams as well to a certain extent. Not as much as the Dodgers, obviously, but they get a little piece of that still. However, ownership of these other networks is not shared. So the Yankees are not sharing any of the revenue they make through their ownership of Yes Network. Same with the Dodgers, same with the Cubs. They're not sharing that portion. So that's another little wrinkle there, is that the Dodgers and the Yankees are able to go, oh, well, we actually don't need to share that because that is not, we didn't sell our media rights to these guys. We are doing it ourselves. Therefore, we don't have to share it. Which, again, it's great business. It's really like the businessman inside of me is like, I can't help but admire the decisions that were made by these guys. I just hate that it was them and not us. But I do still think that they are there is stuff that we can learn from them and try and apply ourselves. But at the same time, New York, LA, Chicago, they are just in different markets. Baseball's been around in New York and Chicago for over 100 years, and it's been in LA for longer than like my dad has been alive by a good deal. And then there's Arizona, where it hasn't even been around as long as I've been alive. I'm a young buck. I'm a kid still. I'm not even that old, sort of. And so there's just no equating those two. And just for reference, this is a little bit old. We only have at least I could only find the 2024 numbers for how much revenue these teams brought in. But the Dodgers in 2024 brought in the most revenue of any team at $752 million, which is a lot. $752 million. That is from media rights, local and national. That's from ticket sales. That's from merchandise. That's from whatever else, other ways that they make money. And since then, we know that they've made even more year upon year. So we know that their 2025 was better than this. But still, the Diamondbacks were more in the middle, and they earned 328, so less than half of what the Dodgers earned. And then at the bottom was the Athletics, who earned $257 million in 2024. So there's a huge gap in how much these teams are making. And the other thing that's really interesting is that you can also look at, okay, well, what are they then putting into? What percent are they putting into their payroll? And this, what you have to factor in their payroll plus the luxury tax. I do not know if these numbers reflect, actually, I do know, but for the sake of this argument, we're just gonna take this at face value. I don't know exactly how much all of these teams. I know the Dodgers at least, but I don't know about the rest of them. We don't know how much they spent versus how much was deferred, and we don't know if this includes the value of the payroll or if it's just the physical dollars that they spent. But nonetheless, the Dodgers earned $752 million. They put 73% of that money back into the payroll and spent $550 million on their payroll. They weren't the highest percent, though. The highest percent was the Mets, who made $444 million and put in $400 million in 2025. That's 90%. So they took everything that they made and put it right back into payroll. The thing about them, though, is that they, by most accounts, operated at a loss at least the last season, but probably the last couple. And which, they're the Mets, they'll be fine. They can do that. But the Mets are a huge market team still. And but that's the sort of thing, is you also have to remember that they have to pay for maintenance of their stadiums. They have to pay their employees. They have to pay the staff. They have to pay for, they have to pay for all the costs of the goods sold at their stadiums. They do their charity work. They do all these various things that around the baseball world that cost money. It doesn't all go to the people playing on the team, the minor league teams, all these different things. So there's a lot that goes into that. But the Diamondbacks are actually fifth, though, in how much they put into it. They put 66% of their revenue into payroll. So the Diamondbacks are higher spenders as well. Some accounts say that the Diamondbacks operated at a small profit over the last year. Others say they operated at a slight loss. It's a little unclear. Those numbers, I don't believe, are public. At least I couldn't find them. The A's, who made the least amount of money, they ended up putting in about 43%. And then the team that spent the least was the Miami Marlins, who earned $317 million and spent $86 million. They spent 27% of their revenue on payroll. So not every team is spending equally. That's definitely for sure. And we're actually going to talk about that next. But I hate to break it to the 8 out of 10 baseball fans who want a salary cap and think that will fix the problem. But the Dodgers are where they are, not because of just their market, but because of the business decisions they made along the way. But while there are many that argue that they haven't done anything that, the other 29 teams couldn't do themselves, the truth actually lies frustratingly right in the middle. At the end of the 2026 season, the owners and players will be getting together to agree on a new collective bargaining agreement. These come with new rules, new ideas, and new arguments on how to make the game of baseball better, safer, and more profitable for everybody involved. In 1994, the owners came together and said that they wanted to implement a salary cap, limiting the amount of money a team can spend on their payroll. This would inevitably mean that players would get paid less money on average. So, understandably, the players' union rejected this and the season was compromised, resulting in the cancellation of the World Series that year. No salary cap was implemented, and talks of a salary cap have been limited to whispers ever since. But the current situation stands at this: fans feel that the game is unfair, particularly fans of anybody that is not the Dodgers or the Yankees, or I guess the Mets are quiet about that as well. Fans of the Mets are quiet. Teams of anybody that are not big spenders feel that the game is just absolutely not fair. The owners, they want to get away with spending less money. They're always happy to spend less money. The MLB wants more profit. And the players, similarly, want to be making more money. So what are our problems exactly? Well, if the fans feel that the game is unfair, they're not going to follow. If the Giants fans of the Giants feel like, well, they're not going to compete, they're not doing well because they just don't have the ability to, because the Dodgers are just going to win the division no matter what, and the Padres are going to win the wild card, and the Diamondbacks are amazing, and everybody, all their fans are super handsome, so they're going to go too, then the Giants fans aren't going to watch games. They're just not going to tune in. They're not going to go to the game, and the Giants are going to make less money, and MLB is going to make less money. Another problem is that, kind of on the other side of things, is that teams will tank their seasons if they feel like they can't compete. And this ends up often being the same group of teams. We don't get a wide variety of teams doing this. It's kind of the same bunch doing this every few years. And that's kind of what we were referring to earlier. Some owners are definitely pretty cheap. I will adamantly defend many, honestly, even most owners of MLB teams, saying that they are doing a good job, and they are spending the money. They are eating the expenses, and they're doing what they can to compete. I believe that is the case for most MLB team ownership. But I would be an idiot not to admit that there are a handful of owners that simply are not there to compete. They're just there to make money, and they have an asset. They want to grow that asset, and they don't need to win in order to do that. So that definitely exists. Another issue: deferred payments are a dangerous game that only a handful of teams can play because of the amount of worth that they have. For example, if I have, if I'm worth $1,000 because I don't own a home, I don't own, a super nice car, I don't have any huge assets or anything like that. I just have $1,000 in my bank account, and I live paycheck to paycheck. If I want to go get a loan for $1 million, which obviously I guess I wouldn't get, but let's say I get the opportunity to take out a loan for $1 million. Okay, I'm now on the hook for $1 million. And if that goes south, I'm now in debt $1 million. And that's it. There's no way I'm getting out of that in a million years. That's it. I'm done. Now, if I'm a billionaire and I own 20 houses, each one valued at over $1 million at least, and then I have a whole bunch of cars and a whole bunch of assets and businesses, and then I want to take out a loan for $1 million. Well, guess what? That $1 million could go up in smoke, and I'll just go, oh, darn. Okay, well, let me just take out a different loan and pay that one back, and then I'm fine. Like I probably wouldn't even hear about it because one of my assistants would take care of it. Like it's no big deal. And so it's kind of the same with these teams. I don't know if that was a good example, but here we are. It's the same with these teams. The Dodgers are worth billions and billions of dollars, though they're only the second most expensive team. The Yankees and the Dodgers are worth billions and billions of dollars more than the majority of the rest of the teams, and are making so much more money every year that if they do a big chunk of deferred payments and they're like, okay, over the next 10 years, yeah, we'll pay $2 billion. That's fine. They know they're going to make more than that over the next 2 years. Even if they don't win the World Series or make the playoffs, they're still going to make that money because of where they are and what they're doing. And so they can play that game. They can go, yeah, we'll bet that we'll be fine. We can pay Shohei Ohtani $700 million here in 10 years. Like, that'll be fine. We're good. And I know that a lot of that money goes into an escrow account and they don't get to just keep it, but that money is invested and they're able to use it and grow it and stuff. So something that they're probably doing anyway. So, but a good example of when this doesn't work is like the Diamondbacks in 2001 when they won the World Series. But then after that, after all their good players left, they owed them millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so for the next 10, 15 years, they couldn't compete because they couldn't afford anybody because they had to pay all these guys back. And they weren't making making a ton of money. The Nationals, a good example of another team that did that. They sold their soul to win a World Series, and they're still paying them back. They're still paying for that. The Dodgers, they'll be fine. The Yankees would be fine. The Mets, which actually surprisingly, the Mets don't have that much in deferred payments, they would be fine. So that's the problem with deferred payments. Sorry. I had to get that out there. And then another issue is that these big market teams, they just, no matter what they do, they make more money. Look at the Angels. They are not competing. They're not doing super well, but they bring in a ton of money every year anyway. So they made $410 million in 2024. Whereas again, the Diamondbacks made 328. So, and the Diamondbacks had just been to the World Series. So there's that problem also to think about. So a salary cap, problem solved, right? Well, not quite, but let's actually go to the salary floor, which is the more common thing that we've been seeing a lot of people bring up lately, that I agree with. I think this just needs to happen. I think it will happen, is that teams have to compete. If you are an owner of an MLB team, a Major League Baseball team, you have to compete with other Major League Baseball teams. So you have to pay either this much money a year or this percent of the revenue on your payroll, on people who are going to be playing on your team. And that would force teams to go, okay, well, we need to sign $50 million, $100 million worth of players. So let's sign this all-star. Let's sign these 10 good middle of the road players. We just have to sign them or else we'll be in trouble. So let's do it. And then they're naturally going to play better and be more likely to compete. So I like that one. I think that's going to happen. A salary cap would limit the amount of money that teams can spend on payroll. The issue with that is that players on average are going to be making less money. Nobody's going to be offering Kyle Tucker a $240 million contract over 4 years because they're going to go, we can't pay one player $60 million. That's X percent of what we can pay the whole team. And so, especially when they're already paying Shohei Ohtani and Blake Snell and blah, 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 everybody else. I'm not going to go over them all again. So free agents would get much lower offers on average, which the players union would not be happy about that. The other thing is not only the high ticket players, but actually the mid-tier players I think would suffer the most because teams would quickly grab all the good players because now they can afford them. They're easier to afford. And then they would use the majority of their payroll there. And then all these other players that normally would be making $5 to $10 to $15 million a year are now going to be afterthoughts, and nobody's going to want them for that much. And so they're going to have to accept deals for $1, $2, $3, maybe $5 million. So they're the ones I think that would suffer the most, to be completely honest. And that's not even going into minor league team, the minor league players and system and everything like that. I'm sure there could be some ways to ensure that they are taken care of, but that's just another thing to keep in mind, another unintended consequence that I could see happening. And finally, it would surely lock out the 2027 season, either partially or completely. But 2027 would not see a full season of baseball if a salary cap were attempted in any capacity. So in my opinion, I don't know that a salary cap is actually, one, going to happen, two, even a good idea. But I do think that there does need to be better distribution between the teams. So local media rights, we need to figure out a way to better distribute between teams. I do think that good business decisions do still need to be rewarded. I don't want to go into full communist mode and say everybody gets the same money no matter what, because then teams aren't going to be motivated to think creatively and out of the box in order to make more money. MLB overall will suffer because of that. So there does still need to be some motivation for that. But increased distribution, I think, is very important. Maybe it's based on the media rights. Maybe it's based on the total team revenue. I don't know. But one thing that I do think needs to happen is that the luxury tax penalties need to increase dramatically. Because again, the Dodgers are happy to pay the luxury tax penalties because they know they're going to make it back anyway. Like, it's no sweat for them. But a team like the Diamondbacks won't dare to hit that luxury tax threshold because that would completely cripple them financially. So what needs to happen? I've suggested that before, that maybe instead of increasing the luxury tax monetary amount, you add additional things on top of that. You start taking away draft picks. You start you start taking away profit sharing. You start taking away, the international trade signings. You know, whatever it is, but it's something other than money, something that money cannot buy. Then that motivates a team to maybe go, okay, maybe we need to scale back a little bit, especially for 3, 4, 5, 6 year repeat offenders. It's just something that apparently money is not going to be the thing that does it. But maybe you do that and you just distribute the money a bit better, which currently it is being distributed out, but not enough, apparently. So there you go. That's what I think, but let me know what you think in the comments, because this is a touchy subject. This is a complicated subject, and it's something that we are all going to be dealing with here sooner than later. But if you want to follow us here on YouTube or on the platform that you're currently listening to this, make sure to hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Locked On Diamondbacks as well. We're on YouTube as well as every other place you get your podcasts. If you want to see more of me and my projects, you can find all of that over on my website at slackshack.tv. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen of every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, and I will see you next time.